Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're on the road. Hello, welcome to the Celtic Down Under weekend review. My name is Anthony Maguire. I'm joined by, as always, with Paul Massey and Richard Tobin as we looked at Kilmarnock 0, Celtic 2, the last league game before the international break. Guys, how have we been? Richard, it's been a little while since we've seen you. What have you been up to? What's been happening?
No. Sorry, last week Bill Bailey was in town, and so I went to see him instead of going to the podcast. Sorry, at media, and that was good fun. Actually, it was a great show. Played a blinding show in Perth. Multi-instrumentalist, topped off at the end with a bagpipe solo. That poor cat. A bagpipe solo to his friend Sean Locke. Done very well at the end and played the Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond at the end of his gig. But very, very talented guy, very funny show. Sorry about not being on the show last week, guys, because there was plenty to talk about. It's been a great week.
You're forgiven.
Thank you.
Paul, how was your weekend, mate?
Yeah, it was good. My brother arrives, this time next week he'll be here. So it was a weekend of, you'd think there was a visiting dignitary, not just my brother. It was a weekend of chores and general tidying, organisation, etc., etc. Oh, and I in between all of that, I attended a dog's birthday party yesterday.
Sorry, a what?
A dog's birthday party. Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, if you're childless, you get invited to dog birthday parties. Probably more agreeable than a child's birthday party, I would imagine.
Yep.
Although one of mine was barking like a dick for most of it. And pleased to see that the what was pretty close to sunburn last night and this morning is sort of developing nicely into a little bit of a tan. So yeah, I was caught out of the shade of the trees for a portion of yesterday morning.
This one, UV of 9 yesterday, by the way. I know that because that's what I do for a living. But listen, can I just pick you up right now, Paul? Is that a photo of David Hasselhoff in the background in your room, or is it a painting of David Hasselhoff that you're working on?
It's neither, for a start. It is a painting. It is a painting. It is complete. I forgot it was there, actually. It's been moved from the wardrobe in the spare room where my brother and my sister-in-law will be staying when they come with us. It's an artistic representation, I think, of Noel Gallagher.
I was going to say Paul John Dykes from Axom.
I think he does model himself a little bit on Noel Gallagher. So yeah, there you go. It's he's a big fan of music in general, but certainly of the Gallagher's and Oasis. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there is like that. Now you say it, there's a definite similarity in silhouette.
And now you say it, there's a definite similarity.
There you go. But yeah, maybe not quite bulked up enough to be David Hasselhoff.
No, the Hoff. Yes, Paul, I again count down to my 40th. So again, more chores, more gardening, even though I promised last week that there was no more gardening, there was still more gardening.
I told you, there's always more to do in the garden. I did some gardening as well.
And I was at 50th birthday party. My business partner turned 50, so actually she doesn't turn 50 yet, but she will be. So at a party, so that was lovely. So that was really nice. And yeah, and then just again had a long lie on Sunday, thinking, "Yep, I'll be bright-eyed and ready for 11 o'clock kickoff on Sunday night." 10 o'clock, my eyelids were just getting very, very heavy, and I went, "All right, I better set the alarm here just in case I nod off." Sure enough, nodded off, and then woke up just before kickoff, and then for the first 20 minutes was struggling, and then eventually just shook it off, and then it was fine for the rest of the game. But far out, the first 20 minutes was hard. Obviously, massive week for the club. We dispatched Aberdeen in the League Cup semi-final. We meet the Huns in the final on the 15th of December, if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah. We then had a fantastic result in the Champions League. No one, neither Paul, Sean, or myself, predicted that we would get a win at Celtic Park against RB Leipzig, but that's exactly what happened. And
tremendous.
I haven't watched the whole game back because I needed my beauty sleep that morning. I couldn't get up early and watch it, but I've watched the first half an hour of the game, and you'd have to say at that point, you kind of felt like RB Leipzig were maybe going to go and score a second goal, and it kind of had a bit of a script of like we were, it was like other Champions League games where we started really brightly that first 10, 15 minutes, and then they got a foothold in the game, they get a goal, and then it was all looking as if it was about to unravel, but obviously that didn't happen. But if you'd sort of showed me the first half an hour and didn't tell me the result, I'd have said we probably would have ended up getting beat like 3-0. But obviously that didn't happen. Guys, did you get up to watch it, Richard, or did you watch it?
I did an early morning shift. Yeah, I did an early morning shift for the second half. So I got lucky and saw that kind of that kind of part of the game. Just great energy, and I think I missed Kuhn's first goal, but I caught the second one, and just Celtic Park was rocking, as it always is in Champions League nights. But I think the energy from Maida in particular, really, really exciting to watch. I think it was just one of the great European performances. Yeah,
Paul, before we move on to Rugby Park, again, that totally exceeded your expectations of sort of. Yeah.
Well, it did. And I did get up for the whole game. I stirred around 3:30 and dragged myself out of bed by about 4:15. And enjoyed it thoroughly. Look, I think we all were probably over optimistic about the Dortmund game and got scudded. And I think that tempered all future expectations somewhat. Bergamo gave us a bit of hope from there, and that we could put together a performance against a tough side. But that obviously, Leipzig sitting above Dortmund in the table, only 3 points behind Bayern Munich. Yeah, I think we tempered expectation a little bit because of where they were and the quality of that side. Albeit they hadn't really done well in the Champions League, but they've been playing against, been really good sides that they've taken no points against. So it was, I was told to dare to dream elsewhere, and I'm fully on board now. If we that's the heights we get. That's as Richard's right. It's as good a performance. I'm going to say it's definitely as good a performance at Celtic Park in the Champions League since Lyon 2003.
Yeah,
I'd probably go as far as to say it was better than that performance. We're now producing results against big sides that we haven't seen since probably the O'Neill era in terms of controlling a game for the bulk of it.
Yeah.
But the quality of football is better in my view. Back then we were pretty physical. We bullied teams, and we imposed ourselves that way. And we had a once in a generation talent, maybe more, in Henrik Larsson, which you could dig yourself out of those fixtures, and many a time he did. Whereas now we're going toe to toe with big sides in Europe, and we're dominating the match, we're dominating possession, and we're actually playing much better than them and putting them to the sword in the way that you would expect the big sides to do to us. So it was a massive step up for this team and this squad and for the manager. And without, getting too carried away, because things can change pretty quickly at that level in this competition. We've now got a massive opportunity to not it. Never mind top 24. It would be an almost ridiculous collapse to not do that. 3 points against Young Boys, who are the second weakest side in the tournament. At home, we've got to win that match. Those 3 points, top 24, all but guaranteed. So for me, it's about how high we can finish this table. And currently, it's not outside the bounds of possibility we can get top 8. They reckon 16 points gets you top 8, and pretty much nearly every permutation. That's 9 more. And Bruges have beaten Aston Villa, and Aston Villa is the hardest team I think left in our draw. So whilst it would be pretty unexpected for us to win 4 on the bounce, which we would need to do probably to get top 8. We've beaten Leipzig in 3 games to come. We should be trying to beat. We should be not expecting, but we should be absolutely going and beating Bruges at home. If we play at the same level we did at Leipzig, that is probably going to be the case. Young Boys should be a no-brainer. Zagreb away, I think, is a pretty tough tie. They're only just below us in the table. They got scalped, I think, by Bayern Munich 9-2 in the first match. and they've turned it around. So they've been the big stuff in against the German opposition, and they've turned it around. Look, if we can get even 6 points, finishes on 13 and well above what we were expecting. But I think there is a genuine opportunity to dream a little bit here. We've got an amazing opportunity this season. The new format really suits us.
Yeah.
We've played some great stuff already. We've showed multiple facets to our game. We've dug it out in Bergamo. We've played sublime against Leipzig. We've shown naivety in Dortmund. And
I would argue we learned from Dortmund. I would argue that for all Brendan's kind of bluster and chat after the Dortmund game of oh no, that's how we play and da da da. I think that was very much a kind of okay, hang on a second, and took a step back, but took a very considered step back. And I agree with you. The kind of Bergamo thing, brilliant, really good result on the back of that kind of doing really. But Leipzig, that showed all that experience. Bundesliga team, fabulous. Leipzig are no mugs. They played really good football. They've not won many Champions League points, but yeah, we digress from the Kilmarnock game. I don't want to do it too long, but it's so many fond memories that you're kind of evoking there. I would throw into the mix of memorable victories, the 2-1 against Milan, which was a belter, but also Tony Watt. All these kind of momentous nights. It was a more considered, more mature performance.
Absolutely, Richard. They were great nights, but they were smash and grabs. Like we were backs to the wall.
Yes.
We were backs to the wall, hanging on in, like a fair amount of riding our luck. Now you're going to ride your luck, and we hung in for 10 minutes in the Leipzig game in the time frame that Anthony's mentioned. They scored a goal from a good set piece, but from slack marking. And then we nearly fell foul of the same thing again. If we can tighten up our defense from set pieces and be a bit stronger on set pieces for ourselves in the opposition box, we're pretty close to putting together a complete package for European football. So yeah, really exciting. And it's one of those. I just feel like we've got a real opportunity this season before, no doubt, the squad starts to break up again, and we've got to rebuild it. So we really got, like, domestically we are. And we'll get on to Kilmarnock soon. Obviously, it was a tough night at the office, but we are streets ahead of our domestic opponents. So without being blasé, we focus on it, and we should be winning everything domestically. So really, the benchmark this season is how far can we go in Europe, and we've got a massive opportunity. Keeping players fit will be crucial, but if we can keep our key players fit, I think there's an opportunity to get results against all the remaining games in the league format, and then let's see where it takes us.
Nice segue there, Paul, because we're talking about the lineup against Kilmarnock. So two changes. Carter Victor's dropping out the squad entirely, and I think there's a lot to do with his knee and plastic pitches. He never seems to play at Rugby Park, which is fair enough. And then the other change was Adam Eder coming in to start in place of Kyogo. Again, I think Brendan Rodgers probably trying to default to that performance that we had against Killie that won us the league last season. It was a midweek game near the end of last season. And Adam Eder led the line that day particularly well. And again, I think there was sort of shades of trying to do something similar on Sunday. It never really sort of probably panned out that way or to that sort of degree. Richards, did you think maybe Luke McCowan had maybe been a shout for the midfield, because he sort of knows what these sorts of games and these sorts of fixtures are like, or do you think he should have freshened the midfield? I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I'm being sort of a bit I'm being disparaging to Brendan here, but do you think maybe he should have made one more change in the midfield to freshen it up a bit, or do you think he picked the best team, or what were your thoughts leading in?
Yeah, no, I think it was pretty balanced. I was surprised that Hatate actually starting on that surface again, because I don't think he plays that particularly well down in Kilmarnock usually, but he had a reasonable game. I agree, Luke McCowan has acquitted himself very, very well since he's appeared. Had some really good games, a couple of great goals, and I think he would probably, for me, be in a kind of natural Engels type early swap. But no, I think Brendan's aiming for consistency, trying to kind of keep it very steady. Trusty and Scales in the central defence had done reasonably well. Yes, CCV is always a miss, and we missed his calmness, I think, through that day. But no, other than that, it's a settled team.
Yep. And I guess the other thing, the back of this is that we're now going into an international break. So again, there's no real need to rest players unnecessarily. If they're up for it, then they're up for it, because there's no more games midweek, obviously, and the squad breaks up for international duties. But Paul, I think it was sort of horses for courses, obviously, with Hyogo coming out and Ida going in. But Carter Vickers, it's a management thing with him. Obviously, just again, he doesn't play on those sorts of surfaces, so no issues there. And I guess take us into how are you thinking? It's always it's a notoriously difficult fixture. It's where we dropped the most points last season. Or actually, we dropped points and then we bundled out the League Cup there last season.
Cup, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought he went with a sort of closer to strongest lineup than I was necessarily expecting. I did expect to see Luke McCowan and potentially even Bernardo alongside McGregor. It's a valid point that I thought about sort of after I initially thought that is, there's an international break, so Brendan's not really bothered if players are a bit overtired for their international sides. It's not his problem. His problem is to put the best team out for us and get results and hope that players come back from the international break okay. CCV absolutely expected. The Ida one's wasn't a huge surprise to me either. Absolutely to your point, I'm sure he was hoping to get a similar performance or tune out of Ida, given what happened when we won the league and won convincingly 5-0 and scored some early goals. Never really happened. I just thought, look, it wasn't nice. It wasn't appealing on the eye, but I think you've got to give some grudging credit to McInnes and Kilmarnock for how they set up and the way they applied themselves throughout. They put two up. They went man for man against our forward three. They pushed Ndaba into the midfield regularly to try and clog up space there. They pretty much pressed and sat on McGregor as well, so he couldn't pull strings.
Yeah.
And they shut down space as early as possible to try and defend the space in behind. They were shutting off supply rather than the space. There was plenty of space in behind that back line. But they, for the most part, did a good job of closing off supply and made it difficult for us. And I just thought we were a bit pedestrian and one-paced, because it took us too long to realise what was going on. And we really needed to break those. And McInnes had mentioned it in his post-match interviews that really the only opportunity that we got between the lines to find some space was the opening goal. And up until that, they'd managed to shut us off. And he put that partly down to Cal Vassell's injury, that he picked up a Achilles just before halftime. He got swapped at halftime, and therefore he wasn't able to get back into the shape to defend. So I thought it was, to be fair, it was better than watching teams park the bus. They changed tactics up, and it was, for the most part, it was pretty successful. Like they had a lot more touches in our box than we did in theirs. They had a lot more shots. We had more saves. Generally, they did a great job. But I just think we didn't react to it well enough, and there was too many touches in both the defensive in the back four and in the early parts of midfield. We wanted multiple touches, and when you're going man for man, or when you're being marked man for man, you haven't got time to take 2-3 touches, because they can just funnel back into shape constantly, and then you're going to struggle to find space. So, yeah, frustrating night in total, to be honest. Albeit that we got the win. But as poor as it was to watch, I thought they did a good job from Kilmarnock's point of view.
I think part of, as you say, Paul, part of adjusting to what Kilmarnock were putting out against us, but then there was also just the adjusting to the surface. And let's not,
of course,
that surface is shocking, and the bounce of the ball just isn't the same as what you get in a grass pitch. And you could see that the centre halves in particular are a bit like Bambi on ice, trying to judge the bounce of the ball. And so you're sort of taking that extra touch, and then they didn't have the time to take the extra touch because they were getting squeezed. And they were applying a solid 3 press up top, and like you say, the gaps were at the back, but we obviously just couldn't really sort of find them. And again, that's maybe the difference with having an Adamida up front as opposed to a Kyogo. But once, I think there was one passage of play in the first half, and it was like 2 or 3 passes. Hatate was involved in it, and it just looked so silky smooth. And it was just like we clicked into gear for about 20 seconds, and then we clicked out of gear again. Just like going, it's there. We just need to find a way of just keeping it in that gear just for long enough. And
it was late in the half. It was not that long before the goal. No. And I don't remember who fed it in or who he played it out to. Maybe it was Curry ended up with the ball, but he just took up space in the center circle, and instead of trying to take a touch, hold it in, push it back, which is really every time Ida came one, he came too deep because he tried to shake off his marker and he was being man marked. And when he did, he either knocked it straight back to where it came from, which isn't going to do anything, or he took 1 or 2 touches and then pretty much laid it off. And again, each time it allowed the defense to set. The one you're talking about is, it fizzed into Hatate, and he basically on the half turn, he just turned it around the corner with his first touch. And I think it was Kuhn and he was away, or maybe it was Alistair Johnston. But we were crying out for that. There was multiple times when the ball was played into Ida, and you're thinking, just knock it around the corner, or hit it off to the side. And because if you remember, that's how he was used to good effect early in the Dortmund game, and then obviously they got to grips with it, which was playing it up to him, and him not trying to bring it under control, him just flicking it off one side or the other in the midfield, pushing through and driving on with it. So I didn't. The surface is terrible, and you've got to give some allowances to all the players for that. But I didn't think Ida had a great game in terms of.
I agree, he didn't have a good game, but I think the counterpoint to that is the forearm smash that he got in the face in the first 10 minutes of the match. And we may as well touch on that because that was an early talking point. Was it Joe Newell? Who was it? Joe Wright. Sorry, Joe Wright.
Joe Wright. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some sort of quarters sort of saying, that's the possibility of a red card there. He was lining them up. He knew what he was doing. He obviously jumped him up for the ball, but making sure that he had his arm well and truly, swinging out the way. He's caught Adamida flush. I mean, the medics took 5 minutes to stop the bleeding, and Adamida's run around with a tampon up his nose for the rest of the match. So I mean, that's going to affect you to some degree. It doesn't matter how hard you are. That's that was like noble you to some degree. So I've a wee bit of sympathy for Adamida. Richards' yellow card was issued at the time. There's any more malice than that? Obviously there's a few interesting referee decisions. This is the first one. We're just doing chronologically, so this is the first one that sort of came up.
Yes, so fair shout for violent conduct, and interesting that VAR reviewed it and decided it was still yellow. Great work from Tim Williamson to get a tampon up Adamida's nose in less than 4 minutes and make sure that he was actually back in play. But there are always questionable decisions. If you look at the refereeing team is now almost as big as either side on the park. There are like 6 guys, looking at these things. So, have definitely seen it given as a red. Would have thought that would have been reasonable in the circumstances, but fair enough. It was 10 minutes in. I think that's maybe why they folded.
Paul, may as well do a bit of a... Well, yeah, I think it's a bit of a weird one because from my view is it's either a red card or it's nothing, because rather than violent conduct, which I think falls under an attempt or excessive force or brutality. So I just pulled up the laws of the game before we started because I feel like we need to cover this on another one. So so violent contact if it's off the ball, and it's serious foul play if it's on the ball. So you'd say he's challenging for the ball. He's up for a header. We all know you jump with your elbows and your arms for leverage. So for me, it's one or the other. He's either deemed to be jumping for the ball and his arms are in a natural position, and then it's just a coming together, in which case it's not even a booking, or it's serious foul play. He's used excessive force and or brutality and put his opponent in danger. Now you would have to say that a potential broken nose, which is what the commentators thought it was initially, and the amount of treatment received, he has endangered his opponent. So I'm a bit at a loss to work out why it's only a yellow. I think it's kind of nothing or red. I don't really see how it falls into a yellow category. So one of a number of odd refereeing decisions. I think that there was a foul on Greg Taylor inside 10 seconds that was at any other point in the match is a yellow card.
Yeah,
but it's the old-fashioned free hit because it's the first challenge and it's inside a minute. So I just and we see this with referees a lot. They let things go or they're lenient early in matches, and then later on they realize they've let things get away from them, and then it's confetti for a period, and cards are getting dished out left, right, and center for by comparison.
In the last 10 minutes of the match, 5 yellow cards get handed out. And then there's only one in the first 80 minutes, so go figure. But you make a valid point there, Paul. I think yellow cards just the safe decision, if you know what I mean. It's like I've done something about it. I'm not willing to give a red, but I don't want to give anything, so I'm just sort of like hedge my bets and sit in the fence, and like you say, it should be one of the others.
I think VAR needs to get involved there because Nick Walsh is behind the contact, so Ida's head is between him and where the arm is coming from. Like he obviously sees there's some contact, but I don't know if he sees how forceful that contact is because he just probably sees there's a coming together, and then he's down on the ground and he's holding his face. I think if you look at it from the front, which is obviously the opposite side from where Nick Walsh is looking at it from, it looks a hell of a lot worse.
I think that's the thing. I think VAR did get involved and they said it was no problem. So yeah, that's what I'm puzzled about it, is that the VAR did have a look at it and said, "Oh, all is well." Mental.
They have a look at everything, but it's Don Robertson, so who knows?
Yeah, not asking for much. I guess there was an early chance. Maida did get out wide and did sort of put the ball across. It sort of went behind Adam Maida, and he just sort of got half a touch on it. But that was probably an early opportunity that maybe we could have possibly done better. Then after that, I guess it sort of flowed more Kilmarnock's way for the rest of the half in terms of chances. And this is where Kasper Schmeichel was actually starting to earn his paycheck because he pulled off a couple of excellent saves. There was the one from, not in a chronological order here, but there was one from Ndaba that he sort of steps past McGregor, who I thought maybe could have done a bit better, and then he sort of rifled a shot away. There was the one, your man up front, Marley Watkins.
Oh, Watkins,
Watkins. He, should have finished. I mean, he did everything right, but obviously it's come off the post, and Schmeichel's spread himself well and put the pressure on and managed to save. And then the other one was Tal Vassell, who seemed to have an absolute eternity to pirouette in the box. It was just like
he did it a long time. Yeah,
it felt like a long time. And again, I put that down at the pitch because I just feel that defenders were just a bit sort of bit skittish and just not really on top of that. But they're 3 good chances, you'd say. And this is obviously what Derek McInnes was sort of clinging to in his post-match. But, obviously if one of those goes in, it becomes a much more difficult task at Rugby Park because we know if we go a goal behind there, then, it's the old cliche, they've got something to hang on to. But Paul, have I missed any chances there? Was that sort of we were sort of a wee bit up against it at that point?
Yeah, they're the main ones. I think the save by Kasper Schmeichel from the Ndaba shot is really, really good. I think because he hits it and it's sort of as it's reaching Schmeichel, it's just basically about to bounce. So it's about at its lowest point, and if he doesn't sort of make contact immediately at that point, then it's going to be bouncing back up, and then he's in real trouble. So I thought that stop was great. He did well to spread himself. Hatate gave the ball away pretty cheaply for that opportunity, but they passed it well and through us. But yeah, it was we were guilty of slack play for a lot of the half, and especially in the second half as well, but mainly in the first half. There was, as you say, players wanted an extra touch because they weren't sure of the surface or their footing or both, and they were just a bit tentative. There was a few times in the attacking third where we didn't get in the attacking third that often, but when we did, we wanted an extra touch and overran it or just pushed it beyond our control and were squeezed out. So yeah, I think yeah, Kasper Schmeichel had a cracking game and needed to, but I think he had twice as many saves as McCrory. Although McCrory was not without fault, obviously, because
for the goal
he completely misjudges. What is that? It was a decent clip into the box, but I think he should be. He's obviously caught in two minds because if Ida gets a contact, he's probably if Ida gets a contact, he's probably steering it in the opposite direction, so he's hedging his bets. But then he doesn't, and it just drops in behind him, and he's slow to react, and he realizes it's too late, and it's in behind him. But
it's the best thing that Adam Ida did all day.
Well, yeah. To be honest, it's good movement, and McInnes did note that it was good movement off the back of the defenders. But it was really the first point we had where McGregor got loose in midfield.
Funny you should say that. He did have a shot about 5 minutes before that, so there was it was a quick corner, and he did manage to get a shot away. And again, it was maybe an early warning sign as such. But you're right. I mean, Kyle Vassell wasn't tracking at that point, and the press was just not quite 100% on it. And it's a bit like Celtic in Europe. If you're not 100% on it, you can get punished. And for Kilmarnock, they got punished. It was the one time that whole half, and it just happened to be the 1 minute before half time that it happened. But like you say, I mean, McGregor actually had an opportunity just to put his head up, and he's got the quality to hurt you. And that's what he said. He says, as soon as I hit it, he says, if I thought there's a chance it might just sort of bounce off the surface and go in. And yeah, I mean, the keeper looks like a bit of a diddy because he's sort of just rooted to the spot. But like you say, Paul, absolutely in two minds. And if he sort of anticipates that Ida misses it, he's going to be out of the way, and Ida's just basically got an open goal. So yeah, you're kind of one of those ones where you're just a bit, he's a bit exposed. But in saying that, he pulled some excellent saves in the second half. So he did sort of redeem himself in their eyes, I guess. So Brendan Rodgers probably had to rip up his team talk at half time because he was probably ready for a bit of a rocket. I was still saying he might still have pulled the rocket out, but I'd say it's a bit of a different complexion on the game, walking in 1-0 after, I was going to say ride your luck, but we were living dangerously, I believe was the expression I used in the group chat. Richard's second half, what were you thinking? We were thinking we're going to do a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde thing and actually come out and actually realize we're playing on a plastic surface and we're in a game. And I knew one goal wasn't going to be enough, but what were you thinking?
Do you know, I think that I comes back to kind of Paul's point earlier on. I didn't actually think we played that badly. I think that Kilmarnock set themselves up very, very cleverly against us, and they played that man-for-man thing, and all the factors we've spoken about before that made it more challenging. But we weren't playing that badly. We were a wee bit lucky with the goal. I think that was kind of goalkeeping 101 from Ross McCrory, and taking your eye off at it's coming towards you at speed towards your goal. That's your job, But great, happy to take it. I thought in the second half that Killie had already troubled us enough that they were going to be back and doing a bit more of it. I wondered whether he might change it up a bit earlier. But, Brendan being Brendan, it's always that kind of 50, 60 minute mark before you see any kind of things. Yeah, exactly. So I was surprised that he didn't change it up a little bit earlier, particularly with Ida, who I don't think had a particularly good first half. And I also thought that Engels was being harried off the ball and was very uncomfortable on the surface. And so I thought maybe we would have seen the changes a bit earlier. In fact, Luke McCann didn't appear till really late in the game, and he would have been the ideal guy to replace Engels for me at halftime. But one of the stats like XGs, which as you know is my favourite useless stat. 61 minutes in, XG for Kilmarnock was 2.06. So, that says something to how many times they got on the ball and how much they pressed and how much space they created in that kind of period of time. But yeah, a couple of really, really basic errors early in the second half could have cost us dearly. And I'm happy to pass it over to you boys to talk about Liam Scales. I know how you love talking about him, Paul.
I'll just run through some comments first, Paul, before you gather your thoughts. So Jerry Burns saying Schmeichel playing out still at the moment. Henrik McLarson saying without Schmeichel we drop points. And then there's a couple of comments here about good old. Where are we? Sorry, bear with me a second. Here we go. And this one from McLaughlin P. Wouldn't surprise me if McInnes gets the job. I'm assuming he's referring to the Rangers job before the cup final.
I don't think he wants it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a chance to have it a few years ago and he didn't take it. So why would you take it now? They're in a worse position now than they are then. But he definitely has no love for Celtic. That much is for certain. Anyway, I digress. Paul, second half, there was another couple of other really good chances. I'm trying to remember them all, but there was one where another one in particular I'm thinking of was the one with Stales passed it to Trusty, and it was a bit of a weak look away pass, and then I think it was Matty Kennedy nipped in, and he should have scored, and that was the one for me that was like, well, that wasn't going in. I went, maybe today's our day. We just got a wee bit of luck on our side, but it was just if they were ever going to score a goal, that seemed to be the chance for me. But
Kennedy's finish wasn't great. Like Schmeichel made a good save. He stood up strong, but he put it to the side where he had more cover. So, he went near post and he probably should have gone across him and tried to find the far post. But yeah, it was poor pass by Schmeichel by Scales, and it left Trusty in a bit of trouble, and he got dispossessed. There was one McGregor gave it away cheaply just after that as well. And that led to another chance. There was one earlier than that where Taylor sort of overruns it at the back post, and then as he gets out to try and block, he leaves there's a big massive gap through his legs, and it goes through his legs, and Schmeichel's a bit unsighted but manages to get down and block it with his feet, and then we managed to clear. There was a few blocks in and around the box as well after initial. I think that one was one where he made the initial save, it broke to the edge of the box, and McGregor got his body in the way and blocked it, and it went out for a corner. So it was fair amount of pressure second half. I think the better chances were probably in the first half, to be honest, but they had a more concerted period of goalmouth action, I guess, and pressure. It's a good chunk of that came right in the aftermath of the one that Kuhn should have scored.
Yes, I was. You just
should have put us ahead of 2-0. He should have put us ahead 2-0, and then there was 2 or 3 chances in the immediate aftermath, and it was nearly one each. So
that was Adam Ida's last sort of play interaction in the game before he got substituted. Was the 1-2 he played with Kuhn, and I think that was probably the best chance of the game, for either side.
Just needed a dink, didn't it? And
he wanted a dink over the top. He went with power, but for me, it was great. It was just safe from McCrory, but. That he had to score that, and he scores that, then you're killing the game with half an hour to go. But as it turns out, he gets another opportunity a bit later on. But at that point, we make some substitutions. So Kyogo comes on for Adam Ida, and Paolo Bernardo comes on for Arnie Engels. And I must admit, I thought Kyogo's touch it was like night and day. Ida was trying to trap a bag of cement all afternoon, and Kyogo, just as soon as he got the ball at his feet, it was just very quick and silky, and it was pleasing on the eye. And I was going, maybe we could have done with that from the get go. And like I said, Ida caught one at the face, so I'm not going to be too critical on him, particularly on that surface, because I think everyone gets a wee bit of a slight pass on that one, but. I just noticed that was the thing for me, was it just everything seemed a little bit quicker, and just the passing was a little bit smoother. And I mean, I think Kyogo popped up and he had like 1 or 2 half chances, but it was really a ball over the top of all things. Just the bricky Anthony Ralston just sort of dinking it over the top into space, and Kuhn just seemed to
it
find...
was Alistair Johnston. He was still on at that point.
Oh, still
it was Ali Johnston.
Sorry.
No, it was Ali Johnston. He got his head up, and Gabe had been crying out for that. We'd done it once or twice in the first half and caused danger because it was the only time we really got opportunity to get in behind and run at them. And yeah, Ali Johnston with a great ball over the top, and we know what Kuhn does from there.
Yeah, I mean, he sort of sends the defender the wrong way, and then you're thinking, should he screw it to Maeda? I think Maeda was in there, and he's like, no, I'm just going to bury this. And yeah, it was 2-0, and then everyone collectively just took a sigh of relief and just went, all right, okay, we're home and hosed.
I was trying to think, boys, what was it? Was it a similar finish to? Was it one of the goals against Aberdeen that he finished from that angle? I'm trying to remember. I mean, I know that the kind of Leipzig thing, there was a kind of sclaff across that was finished, but
it had shades of Jota for me.
Right?
Yeah,
I know
coming in at the back post.
He scored goals like that, and I went that was like Jota-esque, and again, it's the old thing where you should never judge a player too early, because I know there's a bit of criticism from last season, but when you got a player who comes in mid-season, doesn't have a pre-season with your club, with your team, I think you can see the massive difference. And obviously had his issues with his teeth and dental issues and whatnot, but we've got a player, and now next minute Sky Germany's talking about him getting, he's the next big signing for someday, and it's like, steady on. We've literally just had him good for the last little while. Like, we want to we'll see the season out and probably get another season out of him before we start talking like that. But fantastic goal, and it's what you want your wingers doing, isn't it? Just put teams to the sword, and then you can sort of, not relax, because it wasn't like completely comfortable, but at 2-0 with about 10-15 minutes to go, it was you're thinking it's pretty comfortable from there, surely.
I would 20 minutes, 19-20.
Go on, sorry. I would argue that Kuhn did all right when he first came, and I think he suggested that this was what he was capable of, and it's just really great to see him delivering on a regular basis, actually. But anyway,
he showed flickers early on, but then obviously the health issues and the fitness and the weight loss was an issue. And that Motherwell game, he looked absolutely dreadful. Like, he looked like he was towing a caravan. Nothing worked for him. In hindsight, it now appears I don't know why he was even in the squad at that point, given how fit or otherwise he was. But no, he gets in behind Rob Diaz and he's away. And then as soon as he angles himself into the box, I think it's David Watson running back, and he almost goes to pull him and then realizes he's in the box and thinks, well, I'm going to have to let him go. Otherwise it'd be a penalty and potentially a red card. And it's a really good finish from a tight angle. And I think you're right, Anthony. Both Kyogo and Maeda are basically running in at the same angle. So either of those would have turned it in if it was a cross, but he was good enough to finish. And as you say, I think it was certainly a much harder chance than the one he had. I think he probably potentially had too much time to think about the other one in terms of, does he go left, does he go right, does he clip it? And in the end, he never really did anything. He just kind of hit it at the keeper. But yeah, Kuhn's on fire. That's 10 goals.
He touched the ball in any number of directions for all of those possibilities that you just mentioned. I think before he actually finished.
And yeah, so I'm just going to say 10 goals this season. I think it's about 9 assists as well.
10 assists, it's 10 and 9,
so,
10 and 10.
Yeah, so phenomenal start to the season for him. It's not a surprise, really, that other journalists are starting to tout him for bigger and richer leagues. And it made sense. It was a German journalist in the aftermath of the Leipzig game, because he was brilliant. And obviously got 2 goals as well. So, yeah, it's one of those. I think the problem with a player like him, he's already 25. He came to us late. And so he'll be trying to balance, pushing his career on with Celtic, but also when does he have his next move? So fingers crossed we can keep him for a bit longer than just the rest of this season, because he's clearly a phenomenal talent.
Yeah, and like I said, backing it up. Europe midweek, and then I was saying just sealing the deal in the league, because ultimately that is it's your old bread and butter. You've got to do it. I've just seen a few comments in the chat, lads, just about our timing in relation to other podcasts that are currently live at the same time. And I just want to say, guys, thank you to everyone who's joined us live. We're a bit of a situation, obviously, in Perth, WA, where we don't have daylight savings. So our clocks don't shift what everyone else's does. And I, have to work, and I can't come on any earlier than when we come on. So if that clashes with other things, I do apologise. But unfortunately, talking about Celtic doesn't pay my wages. It'd be nice if it did, and I'd love to turn it into a full-time career. But unfortunately, alas, that is not the case. And yes, I've got to keep Monty and biscuits and veterinary bills. Guys, I suppose where are we at? We're 45 minutes, so we're doing pretty well for time. Anything else? Sorry, there is a couple of things. The Rio Hattati challenge. There's that one, and then there's the Donnelly challenge on Kasper Schmeichel. And I have to say, brave man charging in on Big Schmeichel. I don't think I'd bother. I know the Hattati one was just before the Donnelly Schmeichel one, so we may as well touch on the Hattati one first. Referee gives a yellow card. VAR reviews it. There's no call to go at the monitor. It's high. It's just contact just below the knee. Yes, I think Hattati's retracting his leg, but I've definitely seen this given as a red card. And I I think he got away with one there. I know there's not excessive force. And I think that's probably, Paul, what you're going to maybe talk about. I don't know. We didn't talk about this before we came on there.
No, it's exactly what I'm going to talk about.
It's exactly what we're going to talk about. Like, if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd be like, probably should a red card. I think for me, what doesn't make me too bothered either way is that the player didn't get injured, and then secondly, there was 10 minutes to go. So if he got a red card, we'd have managed and would have seen the game out. Well, you like to think would have seen the game out. Paul, what's your thoughts?
Well, on first viewing, when the replay was showing, I thought, ooh. Well, actually, at full pace, I thought, oh, that didn't look great. And it was yellow card. I was like, okay, it's not too bad. Then we saw the first replay, and I thought, that's high. That is pretty high. And I thought, I automatically assumed, regardless of force, it's high, the studs are up. VAR will have a field day with this. They can't wait. It will be referred, and we know what happens from there. That's what I thought was going to happen. And I put as much on the group chat. And then I watched it again and went, well, he's actually put, by the time the cut, yes, he's high, and yes, his leg looks like it's pretty straight. But by the time it actually makes contact with the player, his leg is starting to bend and he's starting to pull out of it. Yes, momentum in both directions means there's still contact. It's 100% a foul. It's absolutely a yellow card. But this is when I went digging around in the rule book. It does the challenge endanger the safety of your opponent or use excessive force or brutality? And the answer to all of those, as far as I'm concerned, is no, it doesn't. It doesn't endanger the player because he never got injured. And you would have to say it wasn't excessively forceful or brutal because he's recognized that he's potentially putting the player in trouble and he's pulling out of it. So by the letter of the law, they both got it absolutely spot on. So we're very quick to abuse referees and VAR. So I'm going to give him a pat on the back in this case and say, well done, you got it spot on by the letter of the law. Obviously, a moron like Chris Boyd, who was apoplectic afterwards on Sky Sports, which I enjoyed briefly. I enjoyed briefly before we came on. A red card all day long. It's a straight leg. It's just below the knee. It's a red card all day long. He's an idiot, right? He doesn't know the rules. And he's just an angry man. You're on mute, Anthony. So clearly, well, Farry did agree with him, but I this is the problem with ex-pros that don't keep up with the game, is he probably doesn't know the rules either. And, old school, straightish leg, studs up, hit the player high in the leg, you would say it's a red card. But yeah, letter of the law, not a red. And he's I think they've got it right. But you just want consistency. I think you just want consistency on this. Like McInnes was on record as saying he didn't think it was a red. But then he said we wouldn't get that decision. So yeah, it's. Do you know what I mean? He went round the houses multiple times. He said, "I'm neither here nor there." He sort of, as good as said, "You've seen him given." I didn't think there was a lot of force in it. I didn't think it was a red card. And then he said, "It's not the kind of decision. We wouldn't get it though." And then he made another couple of disparaging comments. So
I just want to read this comment out. It's had me laughing. I think Henrik Malasny has said Rio pulled out. He used the rhythm method. I think very good Catholic. Boom, boom. That's the comment. That's the comment of the night for me. I just want to read that one out in case someone listens to this on a podcast form and doesn't have the video. So I just had to read that. Sorry, Paul, interrupted there. But yes, a few people have tied themselves up in knots because, you're right. Darren McInnes was like, "Oh no, I don't see how that's a red card," and then somehow went, "Oh, well, if the shoe was the other foot, it would have been a red card." It's like, you just said it wasn't a red card. Make your mind up, and you've been reasonable, balanced in your comments up until that point, and then it's just the seething Hun just has to sort of come out of him at the end. It's like I can't do a press conference without just the orange bile in me just seeping out the pores. All right, so Richard, sorry, what was your thoughts? We may as well,
okay. So I was like that kind of merging of the Pantones, that kind of red and yellow, and it is an orange card. It is one of those kind of things that is just so borderline. I get Paul's impassioned defense. It's always quite entertaining listening to you talking about the referee decisions, Paul. It's one of the best things about this podcast. But when I initially instinct, I thought it was a red. But my favourite play of the game actually was just before that when Kasper Schmeichel did a wee pirouette in the box and distributed out to right back. So that kind of distracted me somewhat from the kind of that momentary controversy around Hatate. Like we all know, Hatate's not a dirty player; he's a class player. He's unlikely to commit to that kind of challenge with violent intent. And I agree with you that when I watched it on replay, you can see his leg withdrawing. Like his leg is up, but he knows that he's going to be heading into that kind of collision below knee. When you see it in real time, it's a red. If you didn't have VAR, it's a red. Good, it wasn't. That's great.
Except the ref called it as a yellow on pitch, so I think he's done really well.
There we go.
To be honest.
Yeah.
And then obviously Liam Donnelly probably seething, and then he's charged in on Schmeichel. And the thing for me is he's going for the ball and he's late. But the thing for me is he's running like this with his elbow out like that. And if he catches Schmeichel on the chin, it's a red card all day long. But he's a lucky man, and I'll tell you what, he's either brave or stupid. I'm not quite sure which, but I don't think even in my 6'4" frame, if I was on the park, I'd be charging down Kasper Schmeichel. Like the big Dane would probably just rip your head off, and then Austin Trusty was straight in, and he ended up picking up a booking somehow, although he didn't really do anything. I just basically asked the question, "What the F were you playing at?" So he got a yellow card for his troubles, and this was when Nick Walsh was in yellow card mode, just handing them out left, right, and centre like sweeties. Yellow card, fair in the thing again, like because there was no contact. If he'd caught him red,
that's all that saves it. The intent's absolutely there, but you can't get a red card for intent. You've got to actually catch him, and he sort of shaves the front of Schmeichel's shirt. If it's half a foot higher and it catches him on the chin or jaw, then he's absolutely gone. But he's lucky he missed, I would say. And then the friendly ghost wasn't so friendly, was he? No, sorry, that's my nickname for Kasper Schmeichel.
The thing was, Abada used to be the ghost because
we lost him.
We lost him.
So I've got a replacement ghost.
And I'm not even going to start on that. All right, we may as well, if there's no further things in the match, we may as well go to man of the match.
Hard one this week.
No. Yeah, you being sarcastic, Paul, or are you being serious?
Yeah, no, I'm being sarcastic. I think there's only one candidate, to be honest. But
all right, I thought it was pretty. I was pretty sure it was going to be a clean sweep this week, but
it is going to be a clean sweep.
You had me going for a second there. Well, I was trying to say it was Kasper Schmeichel because I thought I said he earned his dollars, his pounds, and his distribution. I mean, we're talking about in the group chat. We're saying that he seemed to kick a few out the park or didn't quite hit the target, but as you rightly pointed out, Paul, I'm stealing your thunder here. He was under a bit more pressure to distribute a bit further out than they normally would have done in other games, and under a bit more sort of players under pressure as well. So I think he still did pretty well given all the circumstances. And then, as you said, he even did a wee Cruyff turn in the second half just to in front of the Celtic fans. So extra points for style there. So not my man of the match, well and truly. Richard.
Same, all of the above, and the fact that he just seemed to be communicating through the game. I think that you saw when Liam Scales' pass went astray, you could see him saying, "Why didn't you just pass it to me?" Talking to the guys through the game, has all that experience, has been solid. The old cliche, and the Celtic, we have been significantly ahead in our outfield squad for a number of seasons, but underpinned by quality goalkeepers, regardless of what stage they're at in their career. And they've all been sort of mid-30s, really. Craig Gordon, your man, Casper, absolutely inspiring. Love it. So, yep, he's my number one.
He's clean sweep, but he's not really had a bad game. There's a lot of games where he's had very little to do, but even in those games, there's usually one that he needs to pull off. I think even when we beat Aberdeen 6-0, there was one early on that I think right in the first couple of minutes, he had a really good save down to his right. And we talk about this a lot, but being a Celtic goalkeeper is really a difficult job because he's busier than I think a Celtic goalkeeper has been in a decade. I think I heard in the stats afterwards. That's most shots on goal and chances created against Celtic for over a decade in domestic games. So easier to stay focused when you're busy, but quite often there's nothing to do and then you've got to pull one out. And I think he's been absolutely brilliant since he signed. I hope we can get another season out of him. He certainly looks like he's got another season in him, even though he's just turned 38. But it was a pretty easy decision for man of the match. I think he got it on the in-game man of the match as well.
He has similar leadership qualities to Joe Hart. He has that kind of same sort of, he gives that kind of same vibe in interviews that he probably just sits behind a team, and all good teams know they've got a goalkeeper talking to them all the time. Just brilliant. Really, really
and impressive. I think the only other upshot of bringing in Kasper Schmeichel is that we now have Joe Hart as a pro-Celtic commentator in European matches. And I have to say, he's a breath of fresh air and co-coms. He's actually very insightful. And you just tell that he's very clued in for a goalkeeper. A lot of goalkeepers will make the joke that they're a wee bit thick. But he's actually very eloquent and does a good job talking. So so that's another.
Yeah, last thing on Schmeichel, I think his post-match interview when he got given man of the match was he made a comment that I thought was great, which was, and it sort of shows the mentality of this team, and it's absolutely what you would expect. But he said it's easy to get up for a Champions League game, and he didn't quite say it's not as easy to get up for coming to this shithole and dreadful surface. But he might as well have done. And with we've talked about a couple of cliches. You come out with the cliches are there for a reason. That's the kind of game. Like if this was going to be a close title, which I don't think it is, that's the kind of game that kind of wins you titles because Rodgers made the point that we drop. It's a game that we would have lost last season potentially, and obviously we went and closed it out. So it's a couple of like the Dundee game where we weren't vintage and we won 2-0. So these games where we're not playing amazing or the opposition put up a tough game for us, we can't win every game 6-0. It can't be amazing play all the time. But even when the games where we're made to work for it, it's not great. The mentality is there, clean sheets, a couple of goal wins, and you move on. And now we go into, I think it was 7 games in 21 days between this international break and the last international break. 5 wins, 2 draws. The 2 draws, okay, we slipped up against Aberdeen, but it is what it is. And then a draw in Bergamo, which was a fantastic result, and the rest are wins, including Leipzig. And obviously 6-0 in the cup to get into the final. It's been a brilliant run, and out of this international window, then we come into a right period of it. I think there's 8 games in December, or 8 games between the 4th of December and the 2nd of January, including a cup final, including Champions League games, including the next derby in the league as well. So we're coming up to a massive period, and I'd say come early January, we'll probably see some daylight between us and the rest.
I like it. We may as well move into recommendations before we wrap up. Richard, have you got anything for us this week that you've been?
If you're in, so this is a very Perth and Australian thing, but there are a handful of tickets left for Bombay Bicycle Club, which Paul can't go to because his brother's arriving and he's tidied up his bedroom and all the rest of it for him. But a handful of tickets, Stretchback Hall next Tuesday in Perth. Bombay Bicycle Club. Recommend super bands, indies, early zeros, wonderful, big great night. That's it.
Well, I got a musical recommendation that's an album recommendation of the week, but also flows into a live gig in Perth as well. So Primal Scream have released their, I think, 12th studio album in the last few days. Friday, I think it came out. It's called Come Ahead. It's Bobby Gillespie's probably most personal lyrics in an album in his career. His dad's on the cover, and there's a song in there that's sort of dedicated to his dad before he passed, or as he was passing. It's almost a bit of a sort of 60s, 70s throwback. It's sort of like a more chilled out version of maybe Give Up But Don't Give Out, which is, one of the early albums, mid-90s. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. We'll be giving that a few more listens because they are playing Fremantle Prison, of all places, on the 16th of January. So obviously outdoor gig, peak summer in Perth. I imagine it will be a fun evening, and a reasonable amount of Scots will be making their way to the grounds of the prison. It's not a working prison anymore for anyone that doesn't know Fremantle Prison. for our non-niche WA audience. So for anyone from anywhere else in the world, Fremantle Prison is no longer a fully operating.
It's a tourism attraction.
It is a tourism attraction. You can stay there as in it overnight as a youth hostel, which I've done once before, which was an entertaining evening in the cells. They've converted the cells into like,
apparently the night tour is supposed to be really good. I've only done the daytime one, but the nighttime one's supposed to be quite good.
Me too, and I've not done the underground tunnels and the boats and stuff, but that's supposed to be pretty cool as well. But yeah, I don't remember them doing live gigs before, so I'm not sure exactly where the stage setup is and the crowd's going to be, but it's always good to get a live show down in Freo. So yeah, looking forward to that. So Come Ahead, new album by Primal Scream, and if you are in Perth or the surrounding areas, they are playing live on the 16th of January. I would imagine there might be a few tickets left for it, but they will no doubt sell out.
Fantastic. I've started watching season 2 of The Diplomat on Netflix. That's Kerry Russell and Rufus Sewell. Trying to remember what happened in season 1 because you binge it so quickly and then you can't remember what happened, and you watch a 2-minute recap and it doesn't really explain what's happening. But by the end of the first episode, you're kind of back into it again. So yeah, it's quite fast paced, and we sort of think it's semi believable. But yeah, anyway, so if it's sort of espionage and all that sort of government sort of hookery is your thing, worth checking out. I'm just trying to finish up a few comments. My old man saying that he thinks that was the best European performance that he's ever watched. Yeah, you definitely mount a case for that. McLaughlin P saying we smashed Anderlecht 3-0 away from home. Forgot about that one. And he's also saying here that a good goalie is worth 15 points a season. Casper just won as our first 3 points. Yep, I'd say that's a fair point. And then lastly, his final comment here, just saying that we might have another 3 or 4 of these sort of iffy, dodgy games before the end of the season. But champions find ways to overcome.
Aberdeen away will definitely be one of those. Yeah.
And that's part of our marathon run coming up. So we've got a trip to Pittodrie. So yeah, we've got a few sticky fixtures. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we've actually got to go to Tynecastle, which is never an easy place to get a victory, regardless of how well or not well Hearts is travelling. They gave Rangers a torrid time last night, apparently, getting beat 1-0, but a few dubious refereeing decisions as per usual. But I don't know. I'll leave it at that. But we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time because obviously an international break, so we won't be on next week. We'll be back the week after. Paul's having a bit of time with his family. I'm sure Richard might be around, maybe not around, but if not, I'll ring in
Glasgow, but I'll make sure
he'll be in Glasgow. That's all right. I'll have some ring-ins in a couple of weeks, and we'll have a show one way or another. Even if I'm talking to myself and Monty, I will be here. So looking forward to that. Enjoy the international break. Get through the international break, and we'll be back watching Celtic in no time. Please like the episode. It helps other like-minded Celts find us on YouTube. And I think all that's left to say is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.